What would you want them to carry with them after this conversation ends? What would you say to them about giving a heck and never giving up?
To don't feel alone and feel like what you have is rare, that there's millions and millions of people worldwide that are going through the same thing that you are personally going through, and that you're not alone.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
This episode covers depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. Have the crisis line ready if needed. 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call or text 988 in Canada or the United States. And really, at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with having to reach out to communicate with somebody if you're struggling. So, we're going to start this episode of the Give a Heck podcast. What does it take to keep going when your mind is telling you that you should not? What does it look like when a young person carries something that heavy, completely alone, and finds a way not just to survive it, but it turn it into something that helps other people survive theirs? Welcome back to the Give a Heck podcast. I'm your host, Dwight Heck, here to help you live life on purpose and not by accident. My guest today is a recent journalism graduate from Auburn University and the host of three podcasts. On paper, that sounds like a straightforward success story, but the road that got him here was anything but straightforward. Noah May grew up in Alabama, started battling depression at 13, developed anxiety at 18, felt like an outcast through most of his younger years, and reached a point where he contemplated ending his life. He came close to being hospitalized. He carried all of that quietly for years while telling himself he was not good enough. Today, he talks about it all openly because he knows there is someone out there right now who is sitting exactly where he once was and refuses to let them sit there alone. Noah, welcome to the Give a Heck podcast. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you again for having me. I'm excited to come on here and share my story and just have a really good, open, and honest conversation. So, thank you again for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I look forward to it. Thanks for wanting to come on to the show. I appreciate that. So, no, I always like starting at the beginning because our origins absolutely shape everything in our lives. People don't take it serious enough, but I think when people hear our origins, they're better able to connect with us, to hear our message, right, that we're trying to share. So take us back to what it was like growing up in Alabama. What was life like as a kid? What were some of the earlier experiences that quietly shaped your life and how it unfolded?
Well, growing up, I'm from kind of the boondocks of Alabama. I live up in kind of the countryside, is what you would call it. I lived in a single or a double wide home with my mom and my grandparents, and we had multitude of pets that came and went during childhood. And growing up was just very, very interesting. My parents did a really good job of trying to raised me really well and try to keep me to have a really good childhood. I had a swing set and a pool and a trampoline growing up, so I would always be outside in the summertime when it was warm, and during the wintertime I would always stay in, watch cartoons all day and would play games and play with I was a huge Hot Wheel person, played with Hot Wheels all the time, played computer games all day. I mean, it was just really good childhood growing up. But school. was kind of a love-hate relationship. I liked school for kind of the aspect of learning and going there to learn more about stuff. But my classmates didn't really see me as a person. They kind of just saw me as kind of a ghost growing up. I was always kind of an outcast from them. I never really got to really play with them or hang out with them a lot. I always kind of just kept to myself. So I was pretty much seen as a just kind of a loner. And this obviously transpired all through school with them. But when I in elementary school, it started out in that degree of seeing how they were going to treat me for the rest of my career. So it was seeing that was just kind of the start of what I was expecting to experience for the rest of my life with them, was being seen as an outcast and just kind of seen as a ghost.
Yeah, looking from the outside in is painful. I had a lot of the same experiences. I may be quite a bit older than you, but I had a lot of the same experiences that you explained, Noah, right? It's unfortunate. Love-hate relationship with school. There's more people out there than you and I realize that have gone through the same circumstances. So I'm certain what you're going to share today is going to help a lot of people. So when you talk about being the outcast or being that loner, what did you so you say you played outside when it was nice out, inside you played games, watched cartoons. What else did you do to cope? Did you have was you said you lived with your grandparents and your mom. Was any one of your parents or grandparent, pardon me, super supportive? Did you have a network of people that you could at least, because I know I myself when school was tough because there was bullies or there was things that went on, I'd go home and my mom was my solace. Did you have that solace? How did you cope and deal with that up to now?
I had a really good support system from home. My grandmother was 100% one of the more supportive, uh, s- one of the most supportive people I know. Before she passed, she was 100% there. I had a lot of good memories growing up with her. We were both animal lovers. We would buy any kind of animal book from bookstores, any kind of book. If it was like a brochure, if it was 1,000 pages long, I mean, we just bought everything that was had any kind of animal in it, and we would just look at those books over and over again every day growing up. That was just what we loved to do, and that's just what we did all the time. My mom and my grandfather too were very supportive of what I was going through. My mom and I have a really good close bond because I didn't have my father at all growing up. So my father was kind of a criminal growing up. He sexually assaulted my mom when she lived by herself, and that's how she got pregnant with me, was from that. So I was actually conceived through a sexual assault, and so we don't really know who my father is at all. So I never really had that full support, masculine father love that I was supposed that most kids dream of having. But my family tried their best to try to keep it normal, that it really won't to make it out as this, that you're in a very odd predicament, that this is something that's really out of the ordinary and this is just really odd. They wanted to keep my childhood and my growing up as normal as they could. And of course, it wasn't until about 12 or 13 when I started noticing about my father and started noticing about some of the truths were starting to come out. And of course, my mom eventually did tell me about my father later in life, but they really wanted to keep it normal growing up because I didn't want to think that, well, you were brought in through different circumstances. I didn't want to make my childhood really based around that. They wanted it to stay like fully for me. So they just kept everything normal, like it was 100%, like everything was fine.
So when you and that's typical for people that love us, they want to shelter and protect us. I went through that under not similar circumstances, but under circumstances I can understand, and so can many people that are listening or watching relate to the fact of how our loved ones want to shelter us, and they want to. Sometimes it can be smothering. Sometimes it's not conducive to us continuing to be forward and move healthy, like be healthy in life. So you said 12, 13, so that's when depression set in. That is so young to be carrying something that heavy. What did it feel like? Like, how did you realize it was depression? Did somebody talk to you, or was this a realization that when you looked back that you realized you were in a depressive state at that age?
When I first got depression, I had no clue what it was. And it was mainly the fact that we had not been taught about mental health at that point, and it wasn't really talked about enough. This was about 2015, maybe like early 2016 when this all kind of transpired. And so this was still kind of a taboo subject, and they didn't really teach us this in school yet. We eventually did, but I guess at 13 or 14, I guess I didn't want to talk about it at that age because it was a little too graphic, or it was kind of a really graphic subject to really talk about for middle schoolers. But yeah, when I first got it, I didn't really quite know how to react to it. I didn't really know what I was going to say or do because no one else in my immediate friend group that I had was showcasing any of the same kind of things that I was dealing with. And this was just down all the time. There was a lot of factors that kind of led up to the depression, though. My grandmother had got sick with dementia and Alzheimer's at the time. My I was starting to get really bullied again during that school year. I was starting to hang out with a lot of people that would tend to be like more of the rebels, rebellious crowd. So I hung around that and started to really kind of become rowdy and would just be outrunly too. And it was just a whole multitude of things. I also had like a bad porn addiction at the time, and all this stuff just kind of fell on top of each other. And I didn't really know who to turn to talk to because I thought, well, I don't want to talk to my mom about it because I don't know how she'll react. My friends probably are not going to believe that I have what I have. They're going to be like, what? So I was kind of in a gridlock of like, I don't know who to go or turn to talk with about what I'm going through. So I just kept it bottled up. I just kept it to myself. I didn't really talk about it with anyone or discuss it with anyone or anybody. One day, my mom had actually walked in on me watching pornography because I didn't know the rules about watching pornography. Apparently you're not supposed to watch it in the middle of the day facing the door. And so I was like, learned my lesson from that. But after that, after she called me for 2 hours, I just vented to her and told her everything that was going on. And she said, okay, well, I appreciate you for finally opening up. She said, I've been suspecting that you've been not yourself for the past few months, but I didn't want to assume anything. I wanted to wait till you said something because I didn't want to bring this on to you and make you feel like make think that I had assumptions about you and about all this. But so she was happy that I finally went to her and she said, we'll go to the doctor, we'll see what he says, and we'll go from there. So we made a doctor's appointment. We went in and he was like, oh yeah, you have depression. There's no guarantee. There's no doubt in my mind. Got it. And so I was officially diagnosed with it at 14, but I started having signs of it at 13. So, and after I got diagnosed with it, I just didn't really know how to react to it. I was like, do I tell people I have it? Or are people going to make fun of me for it too? Or laugh at me because I have depression and that it's a crippling thing? It was like, do I keep this secret? Like, keep this like a huge secret? I think I did. I don't really remember talking about it as much with a lot of people that I was going through. I may have told one or two people that I was really like at the time that I felt real comfortable with. But for the most part, I think a lot of people never knew or learned that I had some kind of mental health aspect going on.
Well, I've suffered with stuff myself throughout my life, and the stigma of not knowing how people are going to respond or react, it actually closed me off more, right? It made me go more into myself and suffer more from depression because it's tough to, unfortunately, society gives us an impression of what somebody that's going through depression and or anxiety. Sometimes you can go through both in the same moment, right? People don't understand that you can go back and forth. And I found that it got worse. It got worse. And I just become more introverted, more not wanting to share. Whether or not I had somebody that was asking me what was going on, like you had conversation with your mom. It's a struggle. Those listening or watching, it is there's a lot of people suffering from depression. And there's people out there that can help you. You don't need to feel like you're trapped and alone. Just find that one person that you know that can be a good listener. That's what I recommend. Have people in your life that you can say to them, today, I just need you to listen. I just want you to give me solace. I don't want you to give me advice on how you think I can fix my problems or who you can talk to that can help fix my problems. I just want to release. And sometimes that helps. I don't know if you found that, but I found that if I was able to communicate and share, the depression wasn't as bad. How was that for you? Like what were some of the things that you ended up utilizing to were you medicated at all? Were you somebody that tried it, didn't like it, found what was your thing what was your deal that helped you cope to where you are now?
Well, immediately after I got diagnosed with it, the doctor gave me a lot of recommendations for what to do. He put me on some medicine for it. He recommended me going to a therapist, but I was like, therapist is for crazy people. I'm not quite there yet. Or especially it was that mindset that I had at the
Yeah.
time. And so I was like, I'm not cuckoo yet. We're not there at that point yet. So he gave me some medicine. He did diagnose me with clinical depression, and this was more of like, for people that don't know, it comes and goes. There's really no pinpoint of like, oh, you're going to have depression at this time every day, every year. I could have it for a year, be depression free for 9 years, have it back for 5 years, have it free 2 months. That's just how it is. So he said it's going to be hard to pinpoint when it'll spark up again. So he put me on some medicine. The medicine we went through, I think about, I know hundreds of medicines because they would work at first and then they would start to wear off and it would get put on a excuse me, stronger medicine. It would work for some time and then it would slack off. And so that was just kind of what we had to deal with. We had to do a lot of check-ins as well. I think every time I went to the doctor, we had to do like check-ins with my mental health, see where I was and see what was going on. My mom, obviously at the time, she was like, if anything ever happens at school to where you're starting to feel these thoughts again, tell me. Do not keep it hidden from me like that ever. So there wasn't really anything that really gradually helped during that time. It was just a lot of trials and tribulations of like trial and errors of doing multiple things. Something that really helped a lot was YouTube at the time because it was just kind of an escape for me. I just kind of blocked everything that was going on with me personally and just focused on that. And in my mind would just be focused on that. And I would not be anywhere. I wouldn't be worrying about anything. Um, Music also helped a little bit during that time. Um, a little bit. It actually played a bigger role later on, but at the beginning it helped somewhat. But YouTube was a huge factor at first. Because it was just kind of like an alternate reality that I was going to and escaping. And it was just kind of a way for me to escape the real world and the real thoughts that I was going through and be able to just not focus on what I'm personally going through. I can just laugh
It was a
and
great distraction for you.
Yes, it was a huge distraction and helped me really stay kind of motivated and kind of keep me calm.
Well, you get to pick what you watch, right? So,
Hmm.
I find though with YouTube, because I love YouTube as well, there's a lot of great education. There's a lot of negativity, just like any social media platform, because it is a social media platform. It just portrays it differently, right? Being a search engine
Right.
as well, it's a big
Hmm.
search engine, but it's definitely it's run by an algorithm. It's pretty noticeable because it feeds you up what you're doing. So I find YouTube can be a great uplifter, but it also can be a rabbit hole too. So I'm glad you found something that helped you during those times. But unfortunately, it can be a negative too. Wouldn't you agree that social media,
Hmm.
YouTube can cause people to spiral even farther, especially in today's day and age where there's so much plethora of information, global information for you to tap into.
Oh yeah, it 100% can, and I've witnessed it too, and I've fallen victim to it as well. I've 100% have fallen victim to that.
Yeah, it's something that people that are listening or watching, you need to be aware. What are you feeding your brain? What is your associations? Again, associations, just for those that are new to the show, those that listen or watch for a long time know I talk about this. Associations just aren't the fact that Noah and I might know one another. That's a person association, but what association of music? What kind of shows do you watch? What kind of social media people do you follow? Do you find yourself being drawn into the rabbit hole of negative music, negative TV shows, movies, YouTube videos, whatever? And you mentioned that it's easy to get caught up in the trap of using that as our support network. It can be a great tool, but hopefully whoever's listening or watching realizes it's easy to get caught and get trapped and get drug into more negative things. So be aware of what your associations are. What do you associate with beyond people? What do you do every single day? What kind of books do you read? It affects how you comment, conversation. It affects everything in your lives. If you constantly feed negative into your brain, it doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie. So look for information that is more factual that you can have others tell you it's truthful, maybe a parent, a grandparent, professional, right? If you need help finding good content, look for the right person to help you, right? You don't have to be alone. And leading into that part, you have spoken openly about reaching a point where you contemplated taking your own life and came close to being hospitalized. I want to ask you about this directly. Obviously, this is a sensitive topic, but something that I believe matters and it needs to be shared with people to understand that we're all human. We all have weaknesses and trials and tribulations, and we can fall into that circumstance where we figure we're better off not being around. That would be better for us, better for others. What was happening in your life when that happened? How close did you actually get? Can you share that circumstance, please?
Yeah, so the hospital incident almost happened senior year of high school. I had just turned 18. I started waking up with these really bad nausea spells, and to the point where I would actually throw up and vomit this for no reason. And we thought we thought it was the flu or some kind of stomach bug that was being passed around because this was around flu season. And so this was during January, February, usually normally when I would get sick every year, it was like clockwork. So we didn't think anything of it. We just thought, oh, I have a stomach bug. We'll just stay home for a day or two. Well, this kind of persistently happened for weeks and weeks, and we were just like, this is something's off. Something's not right. So we went to the doctor, and even the doctor was kind of stumped, which is something that you never want to hear your doctor say. Is like, because then you go through the whole thing of, oh, I have something that's not been diagnosed yet, that's not been clinically proven. I don't know. So I was like, yeah, I can't. Yeah, I was like, no. So, but he's like, but that doesn't mean there's not something wrong. There's obviously something wrong here because you're obviously waking up, you're vomiting for no reason, your stomach's in pain. Of course, he started asking me 500 questions. He was like, well, have you noticed any mood changes? Has your depression been good? Is school going okay? And he was asking all these questions about in the past of checking in of like, well, has anyone been bullying you or making you nervous or anxious all this time? I said, no, no. Everyone actually was actually treating me fairly nicely and fairly well at that point. And he said, was there any classes that are difficult? And I said, well, other than one class, not really. And so he said, okay, well, let's try this. Let's see if it is something school related. What I want you to do is I just want you to stay out of school this for 1 week and see, let's see if that's causing it. Well, surely enough, I didn't have one spell that whole week. And so we went back and I said, okay, well, I don't know what's causing like school wise. And I'm like, surely enough, one class would not be causing all this. Because I've had hard classes in the past and it's never done this. But surely enough, it was. And that's when I first got diagnosed with anxiety. He was like, I did do some more research and about this because I was stumped about what was going on and I wanted to see if I could find. And he said, I think you have anxiety. And I thought, well, because at that point I knew about anxiety and depression and mental health at that point. And I thought anxiety was you couldn't breathe and you had like something here in your chest. And he said, well, that's usually what happens. But he said there are some circumstances where people do have anxiety attacks in the form of nausea and vomiting. And I thought, love to be the minority, just love to be the 0.1%. So I said, well, what do I do about it? How am I supposed to go about living life now with this? And he said, well, if you want to be homeschooled, I 100% would recommend that. This will help stop it. If you think being in homeschool and staying home would actually help you stay grounded and actually will help you stay pretty calm and collected and not have these nausea spells, then I'm for that. Obviously, we're going to put you on some medicine. We'll do some extra testing and extra counseling if you need it. And if you need me to come by the school and help try to give you like a doctor's note or come in and talk to them about why I'm pulling you out, I can. So, but luckily we didn't have to do that because COVID took care of that. So, but we were borderline close. But I was I was on death's door. I had lost 20 pounds. All the muscle mass in my body had gone. I was just I was really skin and bones at that point. And I think if I would have waited any longer, I would have ended up in the hospital, probably on IV, and probably would be having to get some nutrients put into myself of trying to get some more energy and strength built up.
So what shifted? What was the shift besides the pandemic making it so you could be at home? Not that you wanted to, but it was forced on us. What shifted from you just being in that survival mode, 20 pounds, right? Lost skin and bones. What happened? What shifted in your life to change, right? So that you went from being in quiet desperation, which I talk a lot about and coach a lot about and lived it myself. What took you out of that quiet desperation?
It was about a year and a half into college that I really started doing that change. I decided I just didn't want to stay quiet anymore. I wanted to be a voice and be open and honest about what I'm going through. And I wanted people to be open. And I thought, I want people to hear what I have to say and have people know the truth. So I just started sharing my story with people. I opened up and was like, this is what I'm going through. This is what's happening. This is what I'm dealing with and facing with. You can take it with a grain of salt. You can either support me and stay with me or do whatever you want. It it didn't really do a lot of change at first because my classmates at that point just didn't care. They were very much they pretty much had shunned me out of life after that. And even this, of course, this was a year or two after graduation had already commenced. So they had already moved on with their lives. They had already moved on to bigger and better things for them. And they had moved on to other opportunities. So they, majority of them didn't really hear or probably hear any of that I had to say. So we never really fully I never really heard anything from them. I had some people comment about, well, I never imagined that that would be something you would be going through. Never imagined that. And I thought, well, if you would have talked to me, you probably would have. So it was a way for me to just kind of be open and honest with myself. As the years went on, a lot more people started appreciating my open and honestness about what I was going through. And they appreciated that I was this very open and was really truth telling about what I was personally going through. And they were so happy that I did. So it ended up working out in the very, very end. But at first it was just I was starting to think that it was just a huge waste of time.
Well, yeah. So college was the trigger for you to feel differently. When we look back or we go back a little bit, and when you talked about school and that one class being a trigger for you, did you find though when you got to college and you had some of these realizations and you started being open and sharing more, did you find that because college is different than high school, right? It just is. Was the classroom environments more conducive to you being able to control your mental awareness of where you were?
Well, at that point, it was interesting because I had pretty much learned kind of what my triggers were for my mental health at that point. I had learned a lot about what to look for if I was starting to have really bad anxiety spells, depression spells, and I knew what to do when I was starting to have one of those dark times. I always knew, like, okay, I need to let people know that this is what I'm going through. And that looking back, I'm always like, I get embarrassed a little bit because of like, did this whole thing happen because of one class and one professor from high school? Like, and when you really look at it, it's like this is where it all stemmed from, and this is where it all began, was from one teacher from years ago. And even looking back now, it's just like it's embarrassing to see that, oh, one person, most people get depression, anxiety from death in a family, from a traumatic experience that they've encountered, divorce, loss of a child. Women get depression through postpartum and all this. I got depression and anxiety from a class. And I mean, looking back, it's just embarrassing to really say the cause of why I got it, but there's nothing I can really change and do about it now. It's in the past. I can't change the past. So it's just something that I've had to live with every day from
I'd wear it as I don't know if it's the right wording, but a badge of honor because you're willing to share that most vulnerable point in your life, right? So I personally would wish upon you that you don't feel embarrassed about it, that you see it as a light for other people, that somebody could be listening or watching this or any of the other shows you've been on, and you may be that strength that they're looking for. You may never know, right? You may never know how your own podcast helps people, your podcast, or how your message resonates. But I wish for you the gift of not feeling embarrassed about it, right? That it is an honorable thing for you to be vulnerable because you most likely have helped somebody already without even knowing. And that gives me comfort, right? So that's why I say I wish for you that you don't feel that way anymore because it really, I appreciate you sharing it, right? That vulnerability and what you've gone through and that awareness of the fact that you were going through two different things. Because when you're suffering and got diagnosed with anxiety, the depression doesn't go away. It doesn't, right? It may hide itself, like you said, you went through valleys and you don't, with clinical depression, you don't know if it's gonna how many years you're gonna suffer and you could be fine, and then it falls on you like a brick, right? And it hits again. I find anxiety can be the same thing, right? That we just don't take it serious enough. And so, whatever triggered it, whether it was that class or that professor, whether or not somebody gets triggered because they've a postpartum or a death in the family, doesn't discount or take away from the fact that what you went through is real to you. And I guarantee you there's somebody else that it's real to them. So, again, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it, Noah. One of the things I wanted to talk about, though, too, is depression and suicidal ideation still carries a lot of stigma, especially for young men. And I do know young men, as I've talked about, that have committed suicide or contemplated it, still around. Thank goodness they were able to get the help that they needed before they did something and created that tragedy for their family and obviously the tragedy of them being gone. Did you ever hesitate or decide that when you were going to go public and start talking about your circumstances, did you ever hesitate or wonder, like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? What was that push that made you realize it was good for you to come out and do what you're doing today?
It was kind of therapeutic in a way of being able to come out and say, this is what I'm going through. Because a lot of men have that kind of thought or that kind of viewpoint of, I'm supposed to bottle it up, I'm supposed to keep it hidden, I'm supposed to keep it pushed down because excuse me, because it's something that I'm not supposed to talk about. I don't want people to see the soft side of what I'm going through because it shows that I'm weak or shows that I'm not strong or it just ruins the reputation that they're supposed to persuade. And so I break that and I just was like, no, most men are not like that. 9 times out of 10, the guy that you're talking to is probably going through something at home right now. And he is just doing a really good job at hiding it. Because I think a lot of men do tend to have a good way of hiding the truth about what they're going through, and they don't really open up and talk about it as much because they don't want people to think that they're weak or that they're just these little weaklings and wanting sympathy. I think that they want people to see them as tough guys that, oh, nothing gets me down. I have tough skin. I can power through the whole day, no problem. No, that's definitely not true.
Yeah, I find that societal norms about young boys, young youth, young men, there's so much stigmatism surrounding the fact that, and it goes back generations, as you're probably aware. Young boys shouldn't cry, they should be tough. Oh, tough it up. Who cares if you bashed your finger? Who cares if you closed
Mhm.
your finger in a door or whatever? Suck it up. And little girls were continually told that they should let it all out, which in some regards they weren't taught emotional regularity. Young men weren't taught emotional regularity, and we sat back and we just sucked it up. And as society, it's so shocking in today's day and age how much of that stigma is still surrounding young men and the fact of being vulnerable and sharing their emotions. So congratulations for being somebody that is gotten past that. And not to say that you've gotten past your challenges, gotten past the fact that, you know, you wanted to hide, that you wanted to be in the shadows, because you talked about that earlier, the shadows, right? You just, uh, I'm
Mhm.
impressed, right? There's not a lot of young people, young adults your age that are willing to put themselves out there to either respect or ridicule because we can get both, can't we?
Hmm.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to accomplish, Noah? Why are you doing this? Right? They may not say it to your face, but there's whispers of why we do what we do, why we are vulnerable and share. Did you have people that have been non-supportive of you that have been your driver to be successful?
Not to my knowledge, the a lot of the people that I surround myself with are supportive of what I do. I tend to not associate with a lot of my non-supporters, so there probably are people that I have been taught to in the past, maybe are not supportive of what I do now, but I don't really support what they do either, so it's kind of a agreement on both sides. We just don't support one another. To my knowledge, a lot of my friends are real supportive of what I'm doing and opening up about talking about mental health and everything. Just being a spokesperson for it. To my knowledge, I don't know of anyone close to me that hasn't said that they're not fully supportive. So I'm pretty sure that there are people out there not supportive of me.
They don't need to, you don't need to hear about them.
No.
I agree. So you went to school and you went through journalism. Was that path to be a journalist have anything to do with wanting to be able to share your story, to share what you've gone through? What was the drive to get into journalism?
So journalism was kind of an interesting story of how I got into it. So I originally went well, when I was in high school, my high school was very strict about trying to get us to really double down on a major, just because by the time it came to college registration, it'd be an easy process for them. They didn't have to do extra work and they didn't have to fool with you longer than they need to. So, of course, I was like, I don't, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want to do. So I decided to look around, and at the time I watched a lot of talk shows and watched a lot of clips of them online, and I thought that's what I want to do. I thought that looks fun. I said that might be a job for me to do. So I looked up like what it takes to be a talk show host, what degree do you have to go, what major do you major in, and they said journalism, and I thought, okay. So I ran with it, never changed my major once. I just ran with it, and a lot of people were like, "Are you sure this is what you want to go in?" And I think when they heard journalism, they knew me as the shy person, as of course someone that didn't really open up. They were like, "That's funny." I think when they heard journalism, they're like, "That's a funny one," and they're like, they probably that's probably what got a lot of people to finally notice me and talk about me because when I said it, they're like, the quiet kid wants to become a journalist. They're like, what that involves, right? The qualifications to be a journalist, you have to talk and open up and not be shy. So that's kind of how I got into it. It was actually before a lot of my depression, anxiety really spiked again. So it didn't really drive my mental health, didn't really drive me to become a journalist. It was actually just kind of like
The desire for
watching
a
talk
talk
shows.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, so
What
it
an
kind of just
amazing
came from
story.
interest. So that's how I got
I
into it.
love
And
that.
it was like I ran with it, never changed at all. I was like, even in my
What
third or fourth year, I was like, I'm not changing it. I'm too far in now. If I screwed up, I screwed up. I'm like,
So was it a
oh
good
well.
anchor for you? Was it a good anchor for your mental health?
I
Like in
would
a
say it
positive way?
was. I would say it was. A lot of the kids that I met at Auburn were really nice. They were real supportive of, we were all supportive of one another. They actually would talk to me in class and I would talk to them. It was just like, this was the love that I thought, why couldn't high school been like this? Or like, why couldn't my classmates been like this? It was just kind of like a huge 180 of like, this is a huge change of how this is how my school life should have been seen, 100% noticed and shown that I'm not some kind of hunchback of Notre Dame type thing where it's just I'm like Quasimodo. I think that's what people saw me as, and they're like, there's like kids get away from him, he's dangerous. So that's kind of like how they perceived me as. But when I went off to college, it was just different. People noticed who I was, and my roommates also would talk to me as well. It was just there was just a huge change. It was just different of like growing up. I thought, now this is what I really wanted childhood to be like. This. So it sucks that it took as long as it did to finally get that, but it came in a really good time. It came in a perfect time, actually.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Like, but things happen for us, not to us. So you having that realization and that community at school and realizing that that's what you wanted from your childhood. But if that wouldn't have happened, you wouldn't be here today to share your message to help others. Because there is people I'd be willing to bet money that your story already resonates with them and they've moved on and taken that first baby step, right? I'm a firm believer that people that are willing to share their tough challenges, their character building moments in life, and then what's it like on the other side, right? It helps people because so many people are feeling alone today, don't you think?
I feel like for this year especially, it was just I think a lot of people were becoming more open and supportive of one another. And then this year, it's just like we've turned like our backs on one another again. It's just like, what happened? There's just been a change in just how people act now this year for some reason I've seen. It's weird. But I think when it comes to supportiveness and openness of being able to talk about this stuff, I think has gotten a little bit more supportive and a little bit more like generally people are more open to talk about it now. But yet again, it's like now we're back in that stigma of people are now starting to bottle back up again of keeping this hidden, not really wanting to open up and share what they're going through. So I don't really know really what they're really know the direction of what they're wanting to go in or go down, what's going to happen in the future. But I would say that we've kind of had like a little bit of a step back, just from my vantage point. Everyone might have a,
On the mental health side, yes.
yeah. Some people might have different opinions on that, and that's completely fine. If you think that there's a change, I 100% would love to believe and hope for that. But I just, for personally for me, I just feel like people are a little bit more judgmental now again
Oh
compared to
yeah.
maybe compared to about maybe a few months ago, a year ago.
Or maybe they're more vocal. Maybe they were always judgmental. Sometimes judgmental people hide in the shadows themselves until their pressures and life gets so bad they now become that person that's extroverted about their displeasure, but yet they always had displeasure, right? So I find that people suffering from depression, anxiety too, sometimes deflect, right? They deflect on other people when their circumstances, their lives aren't necessarily going the greatest. And based on that, I got a couple more questions and we'll wrap up the show. And there's a lot of people listening, watching, whether I don't care what age you are, if you're suffering from depression, anxiety, this question isn't specific to ignoring you. This is specific because of Noah's age, right? So for young people that are listening right now, maybe a teenager, maybe a college student, maybe someone who has never told a single person what they're carrying, what is the one thing, Noah, you would want to say to them the most today?
I would say to just open up and share what you're going through. Don't keep it bottled up like a lot of kids do, because keeping it bottled up really breaks you down and really tears you apart. You want to get those bad thoughts out. You want to get those emotions and what you're going through out. So do not keep it bottled up. Find someone that you are most comfortable in talking to and share what you are going through with them, because you never know, they might be going through the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And again, back to other people that aren't a young person, you're in your 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even older. It's never too late to address your circumstances, to talk to somebody, to get help. It's not, don't be ashamed. It's not something you should be embarrassed about. Noah talked about it. I've been there, right? Big age gap, but him and I have a lot of commonalities. I'm just farther into the journey than he is, right? And I constantly work on myself. And I constantly wish that for all of you listening or watching, and for Noah, of course, that you continue to grow, that you continue to feed your brain, which is a giant computer, doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie. Feed it more good information, associate with better people. The people in your life could be that person, like for Noah, that professor in a classroom, right? You don't have to necessarily understand all the dynamics of why that trigger happens, but if you know that something's triggering you, try to avoid it. Find a way around it if possible. And if you can't figure it out, talk to a professional. Get some help. You are worthy. You are seen more than you realize, right? By those that love you, but they can't help if you don't ask, right? And even if it's somebody that's a stranger, they can't help you if you don't ask, right? Sometimes we need to
Mhm.
remove doubt and open our mouth and speak, right? This is where
Mhm.
I'm at. And Noah's stories today has been absolutely fantastic. Got one last thing I want to ask you, and then we're going to wrap up. Noah, if you had to leave our listeners with one message that every single person listening today, whether they're struggling right now or they love someone who is and they don't know how to help them, what would you want them to carry with them after this conversation ends? What would you say to them about giving a heck and never giving up?
To don't feel alone and feel like what you have is rare, that there's millions and millions of people worldwide that are going through the same thing that you are personally going through, and that you're not alone. That someone in your immediate circle, someone that's living in the same place as you, in the same building, or in the same building with you right now, is probably dealing with something personal that you would never imagine. And another thing would be to don't hesitate to get help. Get help. Don't be like me and have that stigma of, oh, it's for crazy people. It's it's not. It's for everyday people. Those resources are there for a reason. So use them the best you can, and don't hesitate of getting help. Get it when you can, because once you do, you'll be very appreciative and grateful that you did.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a great closing message. Noah, where can people find you? What's the best way to reach out to you? Obviously, to find out about your podcast, maybe an opportunity to talk about lethal venom, but where can they find out more about you? What would be the best way?
The easiest way to go to would be to go to my website. It'll be noahspodcast.com. It is my first name, NOAHSPodcasts.com. There it'll have all my social media accounts as well as all my podcast links to where it's all available on there, and just some additional stuff on there. Just so going to my website would just be the easiest way to find all the information about my socials and where all the podcasts are available.
Great, thank you. For those new to the Give a Heck podcast, go to giveaheck.com. Go to the top, hit podcast. It will open up and you scroll down and see a picture of Noah, and there'll be detailed show notes with summarizing the episode along with all his social media links and his website links so that you can easily access Noah. Any final words before I wrap up the show?
Just thank you for having me, and thank you for having a platform for people like me to come on and share my story, to really showcase that it's okay to talk about mental health, and that it is something that a lot of people need to be more open and vocal about. So thank you again for having me, and I hope to my listeners that, to whoever listens to the episode, learn something from it, and that it's never too late to start your healing process and that healing journey.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Noah. Thank you genuinely. It takes courage to talk about what you shared today. I do not say that lightly. You do not have to go back to these places publicly. You choose to because you believe someone out there needs to hear it. That is not a small thing. That is everything. For everyone listening today, I want you to hear something clearly. What Noah described, the feeling of not being good enough, of not belonging, of reaching a point where he could not see a way forward, that is not weakness. That is a battle. And the fact that he is sitting here today talking about it out loud, building platforms so other people do not have to fight alone, That is what giving a heck looks like when it costs you something real. If anyone in this conversation touched something in you, if anything in this conversation touched something in you, please do not scroll past it. Reach out to someone, a friend, a family member, a counselor, or if you're in crisis right now, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can call or text it anywhere in the US or Canada. You do not have to carry this alone. And if you know someone who needs to hear this conversation, share it with them today. That share might be the most important thing you do this week. To our listeners and viewers, thank you for investing your time with us today. We do not take that lightly. If this episode resonated with you again, please share it. When you share an episode, it helps this message reach more people so they too can give a heck and live with purpose and attention. Please subscribe to the Give a Heck podcast on your favorite platform and leave a comment or review. It will certainly help this show grow. Until next time, live life on purpose and not by accident. And remember, it's never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.